been looking at issues of conservation, issues of history, issues of informality, and presently we are looking at issues of climate resilience. I am Aneerudha Paul. I have been in academics for the last 27 years and also been involved in practice. And primarily our practice is a research practice which we have been involved from the Kamala Raheja College of Architecture. So while talking about climate resilience, our experience has been that people generally don't relate to this issue of sea level rise, about rise in temperature. And when you talk to the people who are the inhabitants of the city, to communities, the experience has been different. They do talk of, like while talking to fishing communities which we have been working with, they will talk about their loss of livelihood or the change in nature of their livelihood. So they will talk about how fish catch itself has reduced. That though there are global narratives, what happens to climate change, and when we discuss about climate change, is the fact that there are localized narratives of climate change which communities try to articulate. And these are driven by issues of urbanization. What can stop this microclimatic change? That has been primarily our concern. And one of our recent projects is about working with water bodies. And this is not just water bodies, but water bodies around which there are a lot of communities which are marginalized. There are many such cases in Mumbai, which is a coastal city and which has a history of having a lot of water bodies for being freshwater resources. There are communities that have lived around them for centuries, and you find them still within our city boundaries, only that we don't recognize them. When we work with them, we immediately think that we need to concretize these areas. Even now, if we look at some of these water bodies, they still exist. And if you see in a city like Mumbai, they might exist in the peripheries in Marve, Manori. They might also be there in, like, let's say the peripheries of the Sanjay Gandhi National Park, where there are tribal communities living there, in Array Colony. And in such cases, generally they have no infrastructure, they're off the grid. So what does infrastructure mean for them? How can we create an infrastructure for them and create a positive relationship with the water bodies? There are issues of either groundwater pollution, either sewage coming into the water body, or either like, let's say, solid waste getting into the water body. All these are issues that are contemporary in nature. Earlier these were not so large issues. Thus, the relationship with the water body, which was at one point positive, becomes negative. And the question is, how do we address it? And how do we address it in a manner which is decentralized? And how does it connect to climate change also? That becomes a very important issue. We have been trying to introduce the notion of how we can create a decentralized sewage system, and a sewage system which has biodigesters. We have the understanding of a secondary network also which can be there, which can take the water from the biodigesters and then treat it, and then after the treatment it leaves it to the water body which they are around. So that's how we are imagining that it can create a positive relationship with the water body, and that what it does is immediately it improves the biodiversity of the area, it improves the flora fauna of the area, and then it actually brings the notion of stopping microclimatic changes which otherwise have been happening quite rapidly in these areas. And what is the necessity of such projects? Because as I said, that it is not just this notion of the fact that the sewage water gets treated, also it forms in some form a circular economy. It helps the community itself also to use the water body as an economic opportunity. Either they can get involved in fishing, and if they have or are involved in farming, like in many cases the tribal communities are involved in small farming, so those are possibilities that this system can help in. Clearly, this project itself has a lot of benefits. This can form the basis, as we have said, for off-the-grid solutions. And there are many communities in our cities In fact, in a city like Bombay, there is 50% of people who don't have access to infrastructure, who live in informal conditions, who live in villages, or Gautans who live in such areas with water bodies. So this project can actually provide solutions. This project can provide solutions which are low cost in nature, which are passive in nature, like we don't require energy to maintain them. And finally, also the people can play a very important role in their maintenance. That is something very important about this project.
मेरा नाम सचिन है। मैं लास्ट 10 साल से जो वाटर बॉडीज़ है उसके ऊपर काम कर रहा हूँ। हम क्लाइमेट रेजिलियंस के बारे में जब बात करते हैं तो आज हम देख रहे हैं कि क्लाइमेट चेंज सिनेरियो में अभी ऐसा हो रहा है कि पूरा दिन का बारिश 1 घंटे में गिर रहा है और हमारे यहाँ पे जो वाटर बॉडीज़ है उसकी जो कैपेसिटी है, स्टोरेज कैपेसिटी, हार्वेस्टिंग की कैपेसिटी, वो धीरे धीरे कम होती जा रही है। हमारे जो वाटर बॉडीज़ थे उसके जो हाई राइजिंग बिल्डिंग से लेके जो स्लम तक जो कम्युनिटी है उनके अलग अलग टाइप्स के रिलेशनशिप है। फॉर एग्जांपल कि जो हाई राइजिंग बिल्डिंग में जो रहने वाले हैं वो वहाँ पे वॉकिंग के लिए आते होंगे, लेकिन जो स्लम में रहते कम्युनिटी जो है उनका उस वाटर बॉडीज़ के साथ, फॉर एग्जांपल कि उनके लिए वो ओपन स्पेस होगा, वहाँ पे ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा वो टाइम स्पेंड करते होंगे। उनके जो डोमेस्टिक नीड है वो उस वाटर बॉडीज से फुलफिल होते हैं। जो आज के ज़माने में कॉन्क्रीटाइजेशन हम कर रहे हैं उसके कारण ये हो रहा है कि इस कम्युनिटी का और वाटर बॉडी का जो रिलेशनशिप था उसको हम डिस्ट्रॉय कर रहे हैं। वो उसका जो इको सेंसिटिव जोन जो है उसको हम डिस्ट्रॉय कर रहे हैं। जो वाटर बॉडीज़ हैं जो क्लाइमेट में जो टेम्परेचर बढ़ रहा है उसको कंट्रोल करते हैं। सेकेंड थिंग कि जो फ्लड का जब ज़्यादा बारिश होती है तभी एज अ फ्लड कंट्रोल सिस्टम की तरह काम करती है। हमारे जो वाटर बॉडीज़ हैं ये एज अ स्पॉन्ज है, जितने ज़्यादा बारिश गिरेगी उतनी ज़्यादा वो अपने अंदर पानी को हार्वेस्ट कर सकते हैं। अगर इस वाटर बॉडीज़ को कंजर्वेशन करें तो एज अ क्लाइमेट रेजिलियंस स्ट्रैटेजी के हिसाब से उस वाटर बॉडीज़ का कंजर्वेशन के ऊपर ज़्यादा ध्यान देना चाहिए। वाटर बॉडीज़ की जो कंजर्वेशन मॉडल है उसमें सबसे इम्पोर्टेंट है कि जो लोकल कम्युनिटी है उनके पास जो वाटर बॉडीज़ के बारे में, वहाँ के ट्री के स्पीशीज़ के बारे में, वहाँ के वाटर क्वालिटी के बारे में जो भी नॉलेज है वो कहीं पे तो हमारी प्लानिंग में या प्लान में आना चाहिए। दैट इज़ वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट। दूसरी चीज़ ये है कि उनको उस प्लान में हम इन्वॉल्व ना करें, उनके खाली सजेशन ना लें, तो उनको एक्टिवली इन्वॉल्व कैसे कर सकते हैं। अगर वो होता है तो वो जो वहाँ पे जो लोकल कम्युनिटी रहती है उनके पास उस वाटर बॉडी के बारे में जो ओनरशिप है वो आ सकती है और सस्टेनेबिलिटी जो है वाटर बॉडीज़ की वो हम अच्छी तरह कर सकते हैं।
In conclusion, since this project is conceived from bottom up, from the people, from actually working with people, understanding their local knowledge, so in some form it is a tactical form of urbanism. Our cities need to have, as well as should have, to actually address the notion of climate change, because climate change has to be people driven. It would be very interesting to have feedbacks from people. They can understand whether their communities, their neighborhoods can incorporate such projects or not. Thus, we are looking for suggestions from people and requesting them to come forward so that we can actually make this a movement. We can make this happen, because this, we believe, will play incremental role in controlling climate change in our cities.